Hey, good evening, everyone. I am excited to be joining you live tonight. I'm going to spend a few minutes while I let people start to hop on here. We got a lot to talk about tonight. We're going to be talking about Sunshine Week. We're going to be talking about redistricting here in Michigan. We're going to talk about the governor's new order that she issued related to severance agreements. As you hop on, go ahead and give me a shout out. Let me know where you're from. Thanks for hopping on. And then if you could go ahead and share this video, I think it's going to have a lot of helpful information that people from all over Michigan are going to want to see. For those of you just tuning in, I am Megan Reckling. I am the chair of the Livingston County Republican Party, and I am also a former candidate for state representative. I'm a big believer that the more the residents across Michigan know about what their government is doing on every level, from the local level to the state level to the federal level, the better off that we all can be advocating for ourselves to those who do represent us. And I believe that our elected officials should be more available, accessible, and accountable to those who elect them. So I frequently do live streams to kind of update people about things that are going on, important topics that we, the people of Michigan, should know about, especially from a conservative, constitutional principle perspective. And so thanks for tuning in tonight, guys. So gonna go ahead and get started. We have a lot to delve in tonight, to dive into. As always, try to go ahead and ask me any questions that you have in the comments. I will try to address as many of those questions as I go, and if I don't get to them, then we will go ahead and circle back when I get done. I am so upset that phrase "circle back" has been hijacked by someone that has no idea what they're doing in the White House, because I use that phrase all the time, and it's because, one, I have no problem admitting if I don't know something, and I think it's the right thing to do, and to follow back up with the info. Unfortunately, someone in the press secretary for the president's position should not have to circle back with us as often as she does, because she should know a lot more. So, Sunshine Week. What is Sunshine Week? Sunshine Week was started back around 2005, kind of by the Press Association, as a way to shine light on government accountability and transparency. And it's not a secret that here in Michigan, we rank 50 out of 50th, dead last in government transparency. This is something that I talked a lot about last year. There have been times when the House of Representatives have attempted to rectify this situation, but what has happened over the last year, the last 12 months in our government, especially with things that are going on in our executive branch, have made it even more apparent why it is not only essential, but it is imperative that we really buckle down and we address the fact that the Michigan legislature and the executive office, the governor's office, do not fall under Michigan's Freedom of Information Act. So you cannot submit a FOIA request here in Michigan. And that's just simply unacceptable. We, the people, should have access to the documents that we require from our state departments, from our local governments, all of those things you, the residents of Michigan, should be able to obtain from your state senator's office and your state representative's office and your government or your governor's office. It's only fair that we do that. And so this week is Sunshine Week. It started yesterday, and it's a week that you can really focus on government transparency. The governor, literally, one of her main talking points, besides fixing the damn roads, was on government transparency. She released her own package. And in the Michigan House and in the Michigan Senate, they have begun to move packages of bills that would open themselves and the governor's office up to FOIA. These packages are pretty good. There's a couple of concerns that I've had when I read through them. One of the concerns that I have relates to executive privilege in the governor's office, but overall it's a pretty good start. As these bills start to move through the process, again, it's the legislative process. So the House gets a say, the Senate gets a say. They're going to have some changes, and then they're going to come to the end, and they're going to compromise, and then they're going to put something on the governor's desk. I believe that our Republican-controlled House and Senate should put a good FOIA package that holds her office as open and transparent as they hold themselves. They shouldn't give her any extra outs that they would not give themselves, or we shouldn't really be giving them any outs, but she should not have any extra clauses to try to hide information from we the people who should be able to FOIA information from her office. So one of the things that I'm going to encourage you to do tonight is to email your state senator and email your state representative and ask them to please vote in favor of the legislative FOIA packages that are starting to move. I would give you the bill numbers, but in fairness, the packages are anywhere from 8 to 10 bills. And so it's a lot of bills in the House. It's a lot of bills in the Senate. I can imagine at the end what they're going to do is take some of the House bills, some of the Senate bills, and mish that into one package that heads to the governor's desk. So to keep it simple and stupid, not saying that we're all stupid, but we're not, but to keep it simple, just email your state representative and your state senator and ask them to support the legislative FOIA package. It moved out of committee in the House last week, and they are starting to address it on the floor here. And then in the Senate, it's scheduled to be voted on tomorrow in the Senate Oversight Committee. And so this is really, really important for the residents of Michigan to know what is going on in their government. The second thing that I would like to address tonight is redistricting. I've talked about this before, what's going on with this process, and it's really important for us, we the people, to participate in this process. If you haven't signed up yet, I'm going to put a link in the notes or in the comments when I'm done here to my weekly email that I send out to everyone with an update about what's going on every week with the commission. I do an email every Sunday, kind of just providing everyone with a quick Snapchat. And here's what happened this past week with the commission. So according to the Constitution, they're supposed to have 10 public regional meetings. The commission actually approved 16 different locations. And these meetings are to be held with the purpose of hearing public input on communities of interest. And this is how the commission is going to define the district lines. They are literally going to define what a district looks like on the congressional level, the state house, and the state senate by the public testimony on communities of interest. And that is not a defined term here in Michigan. It's not defined in the Constitution. It's not defined in statute. We are literally going to be creating the definition of that through our testimony at these public meetings. And I've had a lot of people ask me, what can we define a community of interest? And really, it is completely open-ended. Economic status among your county, the language that you speak, the school district that you live in, the type of area you live in. Is there a lot of dairy farmers around yourself? Religion, homeschooling, if you live in a co-op with homeschooling. Pretty much anything that you can kind of think of is going to define a community of interest. And for a lot of people, I recognize that can be overwhelming. How are we ever going to define this? Have no fear. People are here to help, and I'm here to help. So what I've done is when you click on this link, it's going to list all of the 16 meetings that are going to happen around Michigan. I am asking for people who are willing to go and speak near a location nearest to them. We will, if you sign up, we will help you figure out how you can define a community of interest. Whether that be we give you 3 to 5 things that can help you define what your community of interest is, or whether or not you just say, give me something that I can say when I walk in. Remember, we're not working with the commission to have Republican districts come out of this. It's the Independent Redistricting Commission. The entire point is that the Democrats are going to be sitting at the table. They're going to be defining communities of interest on their own terms, mainly by how people look. And the old way we drew districts was by how or where people lived, because Republicans tend to live in rural areas and the Democrats tend to live in more of our city urban areas. And so there's a reason why Democrats are trying to now define communities of interest by how we look and not where we live. Because again, Republicans spread out in our state and Democrats live in the urban city areas. So they need to try to find ways that will draw the urban city areas out into rural Michigan. And their intent is to do that through communities of interest. And so they are going to be talking to the commission. They're going to be testifying at these meetings. They're going to be submitting their public input through email. So it's as important or more important that we as conservative Republicans are voicing our opinion. And don't be fooled by some of the narrative out there. There is narrative out there by Democrats that by Republicans organizing the ability to submit our input on communities of interest is messing with the process or trying to gerrymander the process. And newsflash, it's not. We have as equal constitutional rights to participate in the redistricting process as the Democrats do, as the independents do, and by anybody who doesn't claim any affiliation with any party whatsoever. We all have an equal constitutional right to voice our opinions to the commission. That was the entire point of this, is that everyone would be equally represented. And we're only as equally represented as our side taking an active participation and an active role in the process. And so you're going to see news media things. You're going to see things like, oh, the Republicans are messing with the Independent Redistricting Commission. No, we're not. Voters Not Politician has an entire base that they have built with mainly people who identify as Democrats to organize them to speak at these meetings. There is nothing wrong with us making sure that our side is as equally representative. Again, you can only be as independent as we hold the commission to that. So some of the closest locations, I'm from Livingston County, some of the closest locations to Livingston County are going to be in Novi, Pontiac, and Lansing. They were talking about having a meeting down in the Ann Arbor area, but that did not make the final location cut. So basically, the choices for residents living in Livingston County is to either, one, submit your communities of interest input via email, which they will accept, or to attend the Lansing meeting, the Novi meeting, or the Pontiac meeting and speak at those regional areas. So sign up for my weekly emails. They have a lot of great information. We commonly will do a call to action to encourage people to hold the commission's feet to the fire. And then we have other educational things. A lot of people have questions about who the commissioners are, and we try to do on a weekly basis an educational thing about that. In addition, one of the things I want to note on this, I, in the last week, have been so inspired. There have been so many people who they want to take the first steps to get involved. How can you help to get involved in the political process, whether it be with redistricting, whether it be with your county party, whether it be with a candidate specifically? Let me say this, there is no step that is too small. Everybody has a first step that they can take. Last week, I was so honored to speak in front of 2 different groups of people who were organized in their house, who literally got their friends and their neighbors who are ready to pull up their bootstraps and roll up their sleeves and get involved in the political process. And I came over and we talked about different choices that they have to get involved, how they can get involved. And if that's something that you're interested in doing, drop me a note in the comments or send me a private message, and either myself or someone else we can get you set up with will come over. And if you're willing to gather in your house with a group of your friends or your families or your neighbors, and you guys are just frustrated with what happened this past fall in the election and you're ready to get involved, let me know and we will go ahead and take the steps, and I can teach you guys the steps and the options that you have to get involved moving forward. So moving on from redistricting, let's talk about the governor's new order that she issued related to severance payouts. We all know that it has finally become public that the governor gave a severance payout with a confidentiality note in it to Robert Gordon, gave it to the former unemployment director, and she gave severance payouts worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to multiple state employees throughout her tenure. And so she came out and she said this is unacceptable. She's going to be looking at this policy. And then last week, late in the week, she issued a new order on how severance payouts were going to go. Sounds great, right? No, it's not. She's full of crap, to be honest, because here's what her new policy does. It says, under the directive that she ordered to state departments, it says that these confidentiality agreements and severance payouts may not be used under the following circumstances. They cannot be used where it would solicit or agree to any that would require either the state or the employee to deny the existence of such an agreement. So basically, no confidentiality agreement can include language that says, in order to get the confidentiality agreement, you have to deny that there's a confidentiality agreement. So you can't lie about getting the confidentiality agreement if you take a severance payout. It prohibits release of the text of the agreement. So it can't say, as part of this severance package, we will not release the text of what we are agreeing to. So those are some of the things that, bonus, they can't lie about it and they can't hide the text from us. However, there's some caveats here. It does say that they may continue to issue these if the agreement releases all claims, past or present, against the state. So basically, if an employee has a claim, a lawsuit claim against the state, past or present, the governor may continue to issue, or a state department may continue to issue these severance payouts with confidentiality agreements. It also says that the state, they may continue to issue them if the state makes a reasonable judgment and that the payout will help mitigate financial risk for the state and for taxpayer money. Now, wait a second. So the state may continue to issue severance payouts to state employees at any level if the state determines by reasonable judgment that the payout will help mitigate financial risk for the state and protect the taxpayer money. So let's walk this through a little bit. If these are the logics that the governor issued her new directive using, these are the logic that she also issued the payout to Robert Gordon and the unemployment director using. So under what premise would the director of DHHS, remember the guy who issued all the nursing home orders, under what circumstance would she need to issue him a severance payout to help mitigate the financial risk to the state and protect the taxpayer money? That means that she felt the $150,000 severance payout she was going to give Robert Gordon was less of a financial risk than a lawsuit, and it was protecting the taxpayer money, which means she believes it was less than anything that he may have recovered if he sued the state. It is very odd, may I note, that a department director would sue the state. They are literally one of the most at-will style employees in state government. They are expressly hired and picked by the governor, and they serve at her leisure. So if she no longer wants them there, it's a pretty easy separation. Why would we ever need to give a director who is an at-will appointed position of the governor a severance payout to mitigate the financial risk for the taxpayers? To me, this leaves a heck of a lot more questions asked than it does answered, and the governor actually has more questions to answer related to her payouts, specifically to Robert Gordon, and why that was done under her new directive that was issued here. So, and frankly, I think it is just a slap to the taxpayers. For the governor to come out and issue a directive that still allows these to be done using taxpayer dollars right before Sunshine Week is pretty much a continued slap in our face. That's kind of how I view this. And so the governor has a lot of questions to answer still regarding the departure of Robert Gordon and why he received the payout. I know that specifically in the House Oversight Committee, Representative Johnson is really working on this issue, and we should all continue to encourage him to do that because there is a lot of there with this, and they should continue to dive into it. So the next thing I want to talk about, nursing homes. You guys have heard me talk about nursing homes since last spring. I filed a FOIA request for those of you who are just joining or haven't seen any of my videos before. I have been hounding the governor on her nursing home policies since basically May 1st of 2020, when she first started to issue these executive orders related to putting and allowing and COVID positive patients into our nursing home, putting those who were at the most risk of dying from COVID at additional risk by putting COVID positive patients back into these facilities. I have been harping on this since May, demanding and asking and encouraging people to hold the governor accountable. She should absolutely, positively be held responsible. And over the last 30 to 60 days, so much has happened on this front. You have the legislature, which sent in a request to the Attorney General asking for an investigation. They sent a formal request to the Department of Justice asking for information. They have subpoenaed information, or they've come darn close to subpoenaing information. I think they sent a formal request to DHHS threatening to subpoena information related to nursing homes. Again, the House Oversight Committee is doing a ton of information gathering on the nursing home issues. And so last week, or today actually, we had a response from the Attorney General who came out and said, nah, thanks legislature for asking for an investigation into the nursing homes, but you didn't provide me any evidence. And so at this time, I don't deem that an investigation on nursing homes is warranted. And what a load of poop. It's absolutely mind-boggling. The Attorney General in New York, who is a Democrat, put aside their partisan politics to do what was best for the residents of New York, the seniors of New York, the families of those who died in the nursing homes. They put aside the partisan politics and did what was right for those who elected them. And they conducted an investigation and are furthering an investigation related to Governor Cuomo's nursing home policies. Here in Michigan, our Attorney General just made it clear she has no desire to do the job that we elected her to do. Not surprising. She has no desire to fight for justice for the families who lost a loved one in nursing homes. The only thing that she wants to do is play partisan politics and watch the back of Governor Whitmer as they continue to overlook what happened in nursing homes in Michigan. Unfortunately, it's exactly what we all expected she would do, but it is sad and it is disheartening. However, I do believe to the core of my being that this is not the end of the nursing home issue. This is an expected bump in the road. I expected, as did many other individuals, that the Attorney General was going to give us a big middle finger and ignore us. That was kind of part of the plan. So as our legislators continue to look into this, we have former Senator Pete Lucido, who is now the Macomb County prosecutor. He came out last week and he is doing an entire program over in Macomb County. He is working with the Macomb County Sheriff over there. He's basically creating a panel. There's an old state statute that exists that allows in the medical basically the medical examiner's office, there are task force that are formed. If a child dies under suspicious circumstances, or even if just a child dies, oftentimes many counties, through their medical examiners, have a task force that will review that death just to make sure nothing was wrong, just to make sure there wasn't child abuse, just to make sure that there wasn't neglect, just to make sure that that child passed away in a manner that wasn't inappropriate, that could need criminal investigation or further investigation by law enforcement or potential criminal prosecution. Well, there's a statute that exists that allows, through the medical examiner's office, a task force to be formed that specifically deals with elder death. And that is what Prosecutor Lucido intends to use over in Macomb County to collect information from the families of victims. He's kind of asking you to go out. If you had an individual that was your family member who passed away in a nursing home, go talk to the nursing home. Get as much information as you possibly can about how they died. He has forms on his website, which you then can kind of do a checklist to see, is this something that could further or needs further look at? Then you can fill out the forms, and all of these deaths are going to eventually be reviewed by this task force underneath the medical examiner. Under Michigan law, our prosecutors don't have the ability or the legal right to investigate crime. That is something that is dedicated to our law enforcement agencies. Even though our prosecutor is an arm in law enforcement, they can't investigate crime until something is reported to them from law enforcement. So if they have something that's been reported to them, they can there go do a further investigation and team up with the law enforcement moving forward on the case. But our prosecutor can't go out and just look for crime to look for crime. That's something that is dedicated to our sheriff's departments and our police departments. So Senator Lucido, former Senator Lucido, now Prosecutor Lucido, is literally doing everything within his power to try to hold the governor accountable. And this is exactly what we need to do. I was with someone this past weekend who said, I know the governor is going to be held responsible for nursing homes. And I looked at him and I said, now wait a second. Clinton got off too. This is not a done deal. This is going to take a lot of concerted effort. It is going to take us holding our elected officials on multiple levels. We have to hold their feet to the fire, and we have to demand accountability for this. It would be so much easier to sweep this under the rug. It would be so much easier to sweep away the work that this is going to take. From the legislative level, looking through emails and subpoenaed information potentially, from the prosecutor's level and our law enforcement going through all these cases, from building a case because our attorney general is unwilling to participate in that process. It's going to take a massive amount of work, but we all need to work together to hold our elected officials accountable on this, because at the end of the day, there is no question. The families and the victims who were left behind, who lost their loved ones, whether it be their grandma, their grandpa, their mom and dad, a brother or a sister, or even just the friend of someone. I have friends who I know who lost their loved ones in nursing homes. They deserve justice. And it may not happen today, and it may not happen next week, but they sure as heck deserve justice. And I will continue to go back to the minute that Dana Nessel charged former Governor Rick Snyder with the Flint water issue that happened, that opened the box to charging Governor Whitmer, Director Gordon, Director Hertel, and multiple other employees in DHHS potentially for criminal charges related to the orders that she issued throughout the COVID pandemic. And Senator Lucido, I call him Senator Lucido just out of respect, but now Prosecutor Lucido, he had a good point in his press conference last week, which I did watch. He has to go into this with an open mind. It's his job to go into this with an open mind. There may be criminal charges that result at the end of this for the governor. There may not be. It's his responsibility, along with the other law enforcement agencies, to investigate this with an open heart and an open mind and clear eyes, because that is what the law demands. You're innocent until proven guilty, and their job is to investigate fully and fairly, and then at the end of the day, look at the statutes that we have and see if criminal charges are basically a responsible thing or the correct thing to do. So I believe that there's the opportunity to charge the governor criminally for this. But again, I am not an attorney. That's not my job. I'm also not in law enforcement. And so it's on them to investigate this fairly and properly. So continue to talk to your legislators. Continue to talk to your prosecutor, your sheriff. Ask them what they are doing. There are seniors that have died in almost all 83 counties across Michigan. There were regional hubs in multiple counties, including here in Livingston. Ask them what they are doing. If they had a regional hub that took in COVID positive patients, ask them what they are doing, similar to what Lucido was doing in Macomb County, to help to bring justice to these families. So that leads me into I've got a few more points that I want to hit on tonight. And I don't like being on here for 2 hours because I know sometimes people get lost in the whole message. But one of the things that I want to talk about is Hertel, the woman who was appointed to be the director of DHHS and replace Robert Gordon. The way that the confirmation process works in Michigan is different than the confirmation on the federal level. So that can be a little confusing to people. On the federal level, when the president nominates somebody for a cabinet level position, which at the state level would be equal to a director position, that person cannot start the job until they have been proactively confirmed by the Senate. They must be confirmed by the Senate in order to start their job. So the Senate holds hearings, and then they have to vote yes or no to confirm that individual. Under Michigan's Constitution, that is not the process here. Under the process that our Constitution outlines, once an individual is appointed to a director's position, they get to start immediately. They are the appointed director. The Senate has advice and consent oversight. They have the authority to give advice and consent to the governor's appointments, whether it be a director, the Cherry Commission, the Unarmed Combat Commission, medical advice commissions. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of appointments that the governor gets to make. And the Senate has the advice and consent authority over all those appointments. But unlike the federal level, once the governor makes those appointments, they become effective immediately. Then what happens is the Senate has 60 session days to basically hold their hearings and reject that nomination. So our Senate, now there's some technicalities here. What is defined as 60 session days? Under my opinion, and under the opinion of others, 60 session days means 60 days that the Senate is actively in session voting and they have a quorum for their business. Unfortunately, that is not the way it is under a current existing Attorney General opinion from Frank Kelly, our former Attorney General, who issued an opinion years ago that says 60 session days means 60 days, including Saturdays and Sundays, from the date of appointment. Under the reading and under the opinion by Frank Kelly that stands today, the deadline for Elizabeth Hertel is May 23rd. So the Senate, March 23rd. March 23rd. So the Senate has until March 23rd to actively reject her appointment, or she will be permanently the director of DHHS. So this is why it's a little bit different than the federal level. So days after Elizabeth Hertel was appointed the director of DHHS, she, on February 4th, issued the new executive order that allowed winter sports to resume, but it also silently extended the deadline for restaurants to operate at a lower capacity. If you review a lot of the information that was put out by the department, restaurateurs were apparently supposed to be psychic and checking a website to know that the rules had changed on them. I was actually out to eat at a restaurant when I said something about, well, how do you feel that the reduction on your capacity was extended until March 25th? And they looked at me and it was as though they had literally seen a ghost. Because they had no idea. They had no idea that the director had issued an extension when she dealt with the winter sports. Elizabeth Hertel also, back in February, sent a memo to our state attorney general asking about transgender issues and the process by which an individual can change their gender on their driver's license, asking if this was constitutional. Elizabeth Hertel was not just appointed to the Department of Health and Human Services to issue pandemic orders. I know Liz. I've worked with her in the past. She is a fantastic individual. However, if you listen to her testimony in committee, there is absolutely no doubt that she will side with the governor 10 out of 10 times. There is no doubt that it is the governor driving the policy bus on COVID. She was flat out asked multiple times, Are you, the director of DHHS, looking to reduce the restrictions on in-office working? And her reply was, well, the governor is starting a task force to study when the governor would like people to go back. This is a couple answers after she was asked, are you issuing these orders based on health and science and data, or is the governor? And she said, I am. I am unequivocally issuing the pandemic orders based on the science and data that I have. But then a few questions later, when she's asked about resuming in-office work, she says, well, the governor's starting to study that issue to see what she wants to do. You can't have it both ways. There is no doubt when you listen to her answer. 1, she is there to do the bidding of the governor. 2, they fully intend to keep power through the public health order indefinitely. There is no ifs, there is no ands, there is no buts. The Department of Health and Human Services and the governor fully intend to keep unilateral control over Michigan through public health orders. When can our schools be in person and when can they not? Until 2 things happen. 1, the legislature finds a way to make them stop, or 2, businesses step up who are being harmed by this to sue them. There's all kinds of talk about, I think the Michigan Republican Party held a press conference down at Comerica Park today about the stadium capacity for opening day at Comerica Park compared to other parks and other baseball stadiums around the nation. Just forget about Comerica for a minute. Let's talk about our banquet hall facilities, which are absolutely dying. Right now, their capacity limit is 25 people. For those who live in Livingston County, at one point, more than likely, you have gone to Crystal Gardens for something, whether it be a charity dinner, a wedding, a meeting. Crystal Gardens is one of the main venue halls in Livingston County. I personally have hosted dinners there, upwards of 700 individuals, and we all fit just fine. There are other banquet facilities. You have the country clubs, Oak Point, Lakelands, you have Walden Woods. You have all of these locations which have been built to accommodate 100, 150, 200 people, and Crystal Gardens, which has been built to accommodate hundreds of individuals. The number of people that they can have in their facility as of today is 25 individuals. 25. I reached out to Crystal Gardens at the beginning of March to say I would like to schedule a meeting there for 50 people. I could literally sit 50 people 10 feet apart where we could do circles in their back room. They're not legally allowed to have me there. And I'm not going to judge a business. It's not my business on the line. It's not my liquor license on the line. It's not my employees. But I can tell you this, that besides our baseballs and our restaurants, which have been decimated, we are now into March. After an entire wedding year canceled for these facilities. They've gone all of March last year, all the way through wedding season. They went through the winter and the fall, which is usually when they have all their charity galas and their dinners for nonprofits and meetings and just their other regular kind of, what do you call them? I'm mind blanking now. Like your job fairs and your exhibitions. They've missed out on all of that across our state. The DeVos Center can have 25 people in the DeVos Center. These businesses who are now moving into their second wedding season can only have 25 people in them. That is absolutely positively ridiculous. And there is absolutely no science and no data that supports that decision. None whatsoever. And it is the director of the Department of Human Services, her, who is signing these orders, keeping our businesses closed. So Kelly, you asked, what are the options left to stop DHHS? Frankly, a lot of them are not pretty. I mean, the governor has already declared war on the legislature. She pats them on the head. She treats them like they're cute little stepchildren and just kind of tells them to sit down and shut up and be nice and give her what she wants. The options left they're just not pretty. They're nuclear options. They can start to literally reject every single appointment she makes. Or they can pick and choose. I personally think that no matter what appointment they make, unless they reject Elizabeth Hertel as a director of DHHS, none of them kind of matter. I mean, she is the one that they need to reject, 100%. They can be passing bills. We've talked about it before, and I know sometimes people get cynical that, you know, you can hear about the bills that the legislature introduced. Senator Tice introduced a bill last week dealing with transgender athletes, and there have been Second Amendment bills. There's constitutional carry bills introduced, and a lot of people get cynical and they're like, oh yeah, well, the governor will never sign it. Well, that's great. I didn't read in the Constitution, and if I missed it, somebody can point it out to me where it says the legislature can only pass bills that the governor's going to sign. Because if that's the case, frankly, we don't need the legislature. We don't need the legislative process. We can just let the governor write her own bills that we all know she's going to sign and stick on her desk. But that is not how our founding fathers formed our government. They were brilliant when they did it. Not only is the legislature and the executive branch a check and balance on each other, inside the legislative branch, the House and the Senate are check and balances on each other. So that, I mean, we are truly a representative republic. Our legislature's job is to pass bills. So you know what? Frankly, that's what I think they should be doing. They should be passing bills. They should be passing bills and putting them on the governor's desk and make her sign them or make them veto them and make her accountable for the decisions that she's making. If they don't pass bills, we get to look at them and say, you guys have done nothing. If she vetoes them, or if she doesn't sign them, or if she does sign them, and when I say vetoes and doesn't sign them, that is a different thing, because at the end of the term, she can decide not to veto a bill and she can just let it die on its own. So there is a difference there. But if she, you know, we have to get those bills on her desk. And next, they should be doing everything they can with the appropriations process. The legislature has a few jobs. One, to pass bills, and two, to appropriate money. It's not the governor's responsibility to appropriate money. It's the legislature's job to appropriate money. And they should be doing everything they can through the appropriations process to get her butt back in line and to check her power and authority. And no, she's going to play games. She's done it every single time. She has line item vetoed every supplemental the legislature has sent her. And newsflash, I'll put a sticky note on my forehead. I guarantee you the next supplemental they send her, she's going to line item veto something else. She's going to line item veto parts of the budget, and then she's going to do exactly what she did last year, which is she's going to convene the administrative board, and she's going to move money around. They had better be planning on her playing all of those games. This is like 5 games of chess going on at one time, and somebody has to be looking at the end move and outwit. This is like Survivor in real life. Who can outwit, outlast, and outplay the governor? And right now, frankly, I think that she's playing Harry Potter chess, where she takes a piece, she cuts her head off, and we're dead. And we are, like, I don't know, standing in the middle of the street, waving at the catbus as it runs us over. And then we say, please, governor, may we have another? And we let her back over us. And so those are some of the things. Money, passing bills, and appointment rejections, and oversight. I mean, the legislature has a lot of oversight power. Those oversight committees can subpoena state committees. They can be holding hearings. Those oversight committees in both the House and the Senate have a lot of authority over oversight of the executive committee. And so they could be doing that as well. So there's just a couple of things. The legislature should absolutely reject Hertel. You should be emailing, when you email your state senator asking them to support the FOIA package, you should be asking them to support rejecting the Hertel appointment. There's at least a dozen senators, I think, well, maybe not a dozen, maybe closer to 10, that have publicly come out and signed letters and turned in cards at committee hearings calling for her rejection. So this is something that a large number of the caucus members actively support rejecting her. But again, it's going to take a proactive measure. In Michigan, they are not mandated to have a confirmation hearing. The way the process works is, if by default there's not a rejection vote, the individual is automatically confirmed. And so this is going to be a proactive thing that they have to be doing in order to reject Hertel as the department director. And so these are some of the big things going on this week. There was a ton of bills introduced into the legislature this week. And the legislature is about to go on spring break. So they have 2 weeks left before they take 2 weeks off. And so you are about to see a ton of stuff move throughout the process in Lansing. I actually will probably do another live stream towards the end of the week. Again, I believe that residents who know more, know what their government is doing, they can hold their elected officials more accountable. And it's not just holding them accountable, it's just being more informed. I'm a big believer that I don't have to agree with my elected official on every single vote you take, because they take hundreds of votes, and I'm probably not. I have my big issues, but I want to know what they're doing. I want to know what they're working on. I want to know what they're passing, because if I don't know, I can't hold them accountable. Vicky asked, how do we go about changing parts of our Constitution? Anytime that we go to change the Constitution in Michigan, that can only be done via a vote of the people. And so over 50% of the residents of Michigan have to vote in favor of a ballot initiative or a referendum via it's a constitutional amendment via a ballot initiative every time it's done. And so, Vicky, that kind of plays into a lot of people's position on no reason absentee voting. No reason absentee voting was adopted under Proposal 3 back in 2018, which was a constitutional amendment. It is now a constitutional protected right to vote using an absentee ballot for any reason. In order, the legislature can't eliminate that. It doesn't matter if all 110 House members and all what is normally 38, but there's 2 vacancies, so 36 senators. It doesn't matter if they support eliminating that. The only thing they can do is put that on the ballot, and then we, the people, would have to vote to eliminate that. And so that's how anytime the Constitution is changed outside of a constitutional convention, is done via the vote of the people. Other than that, you have to have a constitutional convention. And frankly, with everything going on right now, I don't support having a constitutional convention. I don't support one at the state level, and I don't support one at the federal level. I do think we eventually are going to need one. But right now, if you watch what Congress is doing with our First Amendment rights and the cancel culture, and if you look at what they're doing with our Second Amendment rights, with their crazy legislation, I think opening up the Constitution where these things could be addressed or removed or ripped away from us real fast is a dangerous, dangerous, dangerous place for us to be in right now. And so until we can put more level heads on people and have real discussions about the issues like term limits and a balanced budget amendment are the things most commonly talked about when we talk about having a federal convention or constitutional convention. I think right now it's too much of a political liability for our rights and our freedoms to open up the constitutions. Democrats have proven they don't care to cheat, and they will do anything they can to get their way right now. So those are some of the questions. I'm not sure if I missed. Is Macomb County Sheriff a Second Amendment supporting sheriff? Natalie, I am not sure. I do know that I think there's 11 counties that have a Second Amendment organization. I will circle with the Livingston County 2A individuals who have been great helping counties get off the ground around Michigan and see if Macomb County is one of those that has a club specifically related to the Second Amendment that you can plug into. And if they do, I will send you that information so that you can go ahead and get connected with a local Second Amendment group there. So I know there were some questions here about where are our legislators, why are they not looking into this? And I know there can be frustration. And I'm the first one to admit that our legislators oftentimes should be doing significantly more than what they are. However, let's remember, our Constitution does provide a separation of powers. It is the legislature's job to pass bills, to create laws, and to oversee the executive committee. That's their oversight process. That's their oversight authority, is to oversee the executive committee. That are the responsibilities that are provided to them in the Constitution. Under the executive committee, it's their job to run the laws that the state or the state legislature has passed. Then we have the judicial branch. That is the branch of government that is responsible with enforcing our laws. Our legislators are not law enforcement. They are not trained in law enforcement. Well, some of them are. We have former Sheriff Bob Bazat. We have former Deputy Mike Mueller in the House, and there might actually be a couple of others in the legislature who are either reserve or are former law enforcement officers. But outside of those individuals, they're not trained to conduct criminal investigation, and they don't have the authority to charge anyone criminally. So really, the job to conduct a criminal investigation on the governor related to nursing home doesn't really fall in their lap. They're pushing as hard as they can, and they're looking for information as best as they can. But then at the end of the day, no matter what they find, they're going to have to refer that to someone, whether it be to the Federal Justice Department for federal charges, whether it be to the Attorney General for state charges, or whether she's unwilling to do that and they have to go through a county prosecutor to try to hold her accountable. And so those are really, that's really falls on them. It really falls on our local law enforcement and our law enforcement from the top to the bottom to do these criminal investigations related to seniors and nursing homes. But it doesn't mean that our legislature, again, shouldn't be helping find the information that we need. Joe, I think I answered your question, but just in case, the Attorney General said that no investigation is warranted because the legislature did not provide her with specific evidence where the governor basically caused an individual to die, and she kind of was pretty generic that they didn't provide any specific evidence for a criminal investigation. Ergo, one could not be done. And so that's kind of the blanket excuse that she used for that. So with that, we had a couple of calls to action tonight. Make sure that you're emailing your House and senators asking for them to support the legislative FOIA package. Email your senators asking them to reject Hertel. And I am going to put the link to the sign-up form in the comments for redistricting. We really need people who are willing to, through email or in person, submit our testimonies about what communities of interest can be considered. And again, it's really open-ended. It's confusing, I get it, but us being a voice in the redistricting process is going to make all of the, it's going to make a big difference. And I have a lot of people that tell me, we got to focus on 22. We got to focus on retaking the House on the federal level. We got to refocus on taking back the Senate. And we absolutely do. But let me tell you this. Redistricting is going to happen in all 50 states, and we can't control redistricting in Kentucky, and we can't control redistricting in Indiana, and we can't control redistricting in Florida. We can control what the districts looks like here in Michigan. And this commission is drafting the lines for our state house, our state senate, and our congressional seats. If we don't participate in this process, and we end up with maps that easily allow the Democrats to take a majority control of the congressional seats, a majority of the state house, and a majority of the state senate, it doesn't matter. 22 doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much money people raise. It doesn't matter how much money the Republican Party raises. It doesn't matter how much your candidate raises. I'm going to take the 8th district, for example. Let's just say the 8th district stays the same. Right now, the 8th district has one declared Republican that I know about. Mike Dittmer has declared to run against Alyssa Slotkin again. If all of a sudden the 8th district changes and Alyssa Slotkin is still in this seat, and it is an 80% Democrat seat, it doesn't matter how much money Mike Dittmer raises, he will not win. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go to good Republicans, people who have the desire to serve and follow the Constitution, and you're going to say, well, you run for office. And they're going to be looking and saying, why would I run when I know I'm going to lose? Because it's an 80 or a 70 or a 75% Democrat seat. Nothing in 22 matters unless the maps give us a fair shot. And we're not asking for a Republican shot. We're asking for a fair shot. There should be a bunch of 50-50 districts up and down Michigan where Democrats and Republicans can run good candidates. People has the chance to vote on who they want to represent them out of the primary. Hopefully, as parties, we elect good candidates, and then those candidates get to duke it out, and the Republicans and Democrats get to fight for majority in the House, in the Michigan Senate, and then in our congressional delegation. But in order for us to retake the House nationally, we have to give ourselves the opportunity to keep a 50-50 congressional split, which we have now among the delegation, or we have to give ourselves the opportunity to have fair 50-50 districts where we can pick up a couple of seats and knock off crazy Haley Stevenson and knock off Alyssa Slotkin, who claims she's a moderate, but she's absolutely lying through her teeth because just her votes in the past 2 weeks on H.R. 1 and the gun legislation and the anti-police reform stuff, that has shown her true colors and who she really is. But again, none of that matters if we don't have fair maps for us to run good candidates and spend money in. So redistricting, besides election reform, which is coming, and we're going to talk more about that next week, so make sure you tune in next week, redistricting is an imperative part of the process. And again, the Democrats are going to be sitting there. We have to sit right next to them. And don't let them silence you. The Democrats have been really good lately about saying things like, you're right, your vote doesn't count. Don't go vote anymore. You're right, the integrity of our election and system, you should really, don't worry about it, just stay home. That's been their narrative. They want you to think your vote doesn't count. They want you to think the system is broken. And they want you to think that it's corrupt and wrong for you to participate in the redistricting process. That way, they're 100% of the people speaking. We can't let them do that. We cannot let them monopolize the situation because we're tired of being called names. We have to go toe-to-toe with them. Our voices matter just as much as theirs do, even if they don't like us participating in that process. So with that, I am going to go ahead and sign off for tonight. As always, if you guys have any other questions that you think of, let me know in the comments. I circle back for the next couple of days. Always feel free to drop me a private message. I try to respond to those as quickly as possible. And I will probably hop on later this week to talk about everything that's coming up in Lansing. Again, as you start to see the legislature get closer to a break, you start to see them run all kinds of legislation. And I think it's right that you guys know what they're doing. So with that, have a great night, everybody. And God bless. We'll see you all later this week. Thanks. Bye.